All right. So, Coach Fallon, if someone has had a bad fall, so they have a bad fall and maybe they had to take time off, maybe not, I'm not sure, but someone who either has had a big fall or maybe even a fear of falling, maybe we can touch on that. I'm not sure, but how do they re-engage? How, like, what does that process look like? Because I know that that can be very stressful for athletes.
Right. And I think so again, a lot of factors on the table, as you were saying. Is it a fear? So maybe watching a teammate fall and you're working on the same skill. Is it, you had an injury yourself and now you're trying to work back up to it? I think as much as we don't like to talk about it as mental coaches, I think it's important to just lay it out on the table. While it's not the focus, injury is it happens, right? We don't want it to as coaches, and of course athletes don't want to get injured, but it's a part of competing, of participating in a sport, really any extracurricular activity for that matter. So again, not the focus. We don't want athletes focusing on or worrying about getting hurt, but it is something that could happen. And so with injury, um, I think coming back from so after injury at this point, now transitioning back into sport, I think it is extremely how an athlete is thinking about their return to sport is crucial. And I say that because for myself, when I had mentioned earlier, my junior year, when I got hurt, and I just, for me, that was more so an age factor of not competing again. I'm sure if I was younger, I definitely would have continued competing after I finished physical therapy and everything. But um, for me, it was very much like I had this mindset of whether I'm competing or whether I'm not competing, I want to get better because I had hurt my elbow, and so if I didn't get better, the doctor told me I wouldn't have stability really in my left arm, which I knew for me. I've always been super active. I mean, athletes are same thing, always super active, so that wasn't a question. But I had the mindset of I'm going to get better. I'm going to go to physical therapy. I'm going to get all my strength back. Um, and sometimes with athletes, it's not that they don't want to get better, they're just scared of it happening again. And so the focus is on the injury and how the injury happened. Whereas at that point, if an athlete has decided to return to sport, the focus should be on doing all the right things to put themselves in a position to successfully and bottom line just being healthy to return to sport. And so a lot of it too, I think, is their support system. How, do they have to do physical therapy or maybe like I know for me, if I wasn't necessarily like if it wasn't a bad injury, let's just say I needed my ankle taped or something, trusting my coach, he always would. I wouldn't let anyone else tape my ankles because no one did it. No one taped them like he did. So, but me trusting him, knowing that like he was on the same page and he was in the loop, and while he was taping my ankle, it almost became like kind of routine because we would talk about like how my foot was feeling and what was going on and where I was currently at. And so having that strong support system to know and be open with them and sharing, here's where I'm currently at. um, and more so not just how you're feeling physically, that's super important, but where you're at mentally. And I think that is sometimes the piece of the puzzle that is not always missed, but it's not talked about enough. Because an athlete could want to return to sport, and on paper, physical therapist clears them, doctor clears them, but mentally, if an athlete isn't in it yet, it could put more pressure on that athlete, and it that could um, feed into a block or feed into more challenges down the line. So I think it really requires an athlete to just understand their body and what it means for them to feel okay to return to sport. It does require a lot of the athlete recognizing like what are you thinking about, and it requires a level of honesty. And I would say for on our end, meeting the athlete where they're at, and it requires both parties to be a little bit vulnerable, which is a big ask. You know, it can be uncomfortable, that the change that we were talking about earlier. Sometimes athletes, it can be challenging to want to change the way they're thinking, but especially with something as huge as injury, it is crucial at that point, because it can, I hate to say it, but just being very honest, it can make or break an athlete's return to sport. And it is our hope, um, that they are phenomenal. You know, we help them work through those challenges, because it's not, for me, I knew, I was told I was 100% cleared physically, but mentally it took me a little bit longer to meet my body where it was at. And I had to accept that that was okay. Um, and I found that a lot of athletes feel like they have to rush the process to get back on the field or to get back on the mat. And it's those moments where I think you have to be a little bit selfish. You know, I don't know if that's the right word for it, but um, at that point in time, the goal is to get that athlete better as a person, right? Both mentally and physically. This way, when they do come back, they can be a good teammate. They can, you know, so it, injury is very, we could talk all day long about injury, but I think just having that strong support system, having an athlete being able to recognize where they're at, and knowing that there isn't a timeline. Just because a doctor clears you physically, that doesn't mean, you know, the next day you're going and doing your fulls again. So there's a progression, and that bottom line relies on the athlete knowing that they might have to, I wouldn't label it take a step back. I wouldn't label it that at all, but it essentially going back to the basics at that point, because that's how an athlete can rebuild their confidence through that injury. And once they start getting back in the gym, that muscle memory kicks in, and it's all going to come together. But just knowing that it can be a fast or slow process. There's no
Mhm.
right or wrong. It depends on the athlete, and just making sure that, you know, their support system is strong, and just being, communication is huge
Yep.
across the line, whether an athlete is injured or not, but especially when an athlete is, you know, injured or maybe has a fear of injury, just being able to communicate, hey, this is where I'm currently at. What can I do to work through it? And then going from there.
No, I love that. So again, we could spend all, and we do, right? We
Right.
work with
Yeah.
athletes all day, every day, like year round, on things exactly like this and this challenge. But there's so much good stuff in what you just shared. One, it's devastating and it's so traumatic, and we don't want it to happen, but it does. And recovery is actually a way that you improve and work on yourself as an athlete. Recovery is you choosing to move forward and improve and get stronger in your sport. That is a form of training, is recovery. So giving yourself permission to recover. You need to be, as an athlete, athletes need to be taken care of, right? If they are not at full speed and 100%, they're not going to be able to accomplish the things they want to accomplish. And whose job is it to take care of every single athlete? Who's going to do that better than anybody else? That athlete themselves. So even, yes, you want a strong support system. Like that's so important. And you want patient coaches. And at the end of the day, if you have an athlete and you are a coach or a parent or whatever, the bottom line is, on a human most basic needs level, they need to be taken care of. They need to be cared for. They need to be healthy, right? Like that is bottom line. That is why we all do what we do, is to care for these amazing kids. We're there for them. They're not there for us, right? And I think sometimes we need to just pause and remember that. But at the end of the day, the person that is most responsible for taking care of each athlete is themselves. So giving yourself patience. And I love that you said, take a step back, and you're like, well, it's not taking a step back. Like it's truly not. It's you can absolutely give 100%. You can give 100% even when you're injured. It's just going to look a little different. Maybe 100% today is you choosing to stay home and ice and rest. And that is you choosing to give your 100% to the team, right?
Exactly.
It's going to look a little bit different. But I love, oh, so again, we could go really into the weeds here,
For
and we
sure.
won't, but I think this has been helpful for an athlete who is either injured, or even an athlete who maybe hasn't had an injury yet, but at the end of the day, you're going to do skills successfully more times than not, right?
Right.
Like most of the time you don't get injured. So
Yeah.
really just remembering that, reminding yourself that you know how to do skills safely, And if you get injured once, no matter how severe it is, that was one out of 100, 1,000, whatever that is. That's such a small percentage. So
Right.
recover, retrain, give 100% to the best of your ability. When you're ready to go and you're back in the gym, remember, I am healthy. I know how to do this safely, and just get back to it. Love it. Awesome.